people in British Columbia experienced a disastrous balloon ride when it accidentally caught fire. The balloon was still tied to the ground when the fire started. 3 people jumped out immediately and safely, but the ropes securing the balloon burnt through and the basket started rising. 7 more people jumped out as quickly as they could, but each one jumped from a higher height. The last 2 jumped from almost 50 feet up. Their clothes were on fire. They survived, but both would be in the hospital for several months, according to officials. The others escaped with broken bones and 1st and 2nd degree burns, but nothing critical. Officials said that another balloon fire, causing no deaths and only minor injuries, had occurred only a week earlier. The 2 balloon riders who failed to jump out were a married couple celebrating their 50th anniversary. Their oldest son had surprised them with this champagne flight as a gift. The couple burnt to death in the basket, which ascended to about 500 feet. Then the entire balloon burst into flames and plummeted to the ground, landing in a trailer park. The basket was still burning furiously. It looked like an orange torch as it descended, brilliant against the blue sky. 4 trailers were destroyed by the bomb-like effect of the basket's heavy landing. When the dust finally cleared, the married couple were found completely charred, embracing each other. A professional football player was charged by government prosecutors with breeding dogs to fight, providing the site for the dog fights, gambling on the dog fights, and killing dogs that were not good fighters. The quarterback, Roger Chaney, at first denied everything. He told the media that he hoped his mother would not hear about any of this, and if she did, she knew him well enough not to believe any of the charges. Unfortunately, all the people that worked for him immediately confessed everything, hoping for reduced sentences. They all pointed a finger at the quarterback. The media interviewed Chaney's father, who said that he had told his boy that dogfighting was evil and he should stop it. His son told him that it was only some dogs. It wasn't like he was destroying lions or elephants. He told me that humane societies destroy thousands of dogs a month, so what was the big deal? Chaney's dad said. 2 weeks after the initial charges were made, Chaney agreed to plead guilty to several reduced charges, including animal cruelty. He could be sentenced to 5 years in jail. Across the nation, football fans and animal fans were equally outraged at his admission. Athletes are supposed to be a model for our nation's youth, said some. He is more of an animal than any of his poor dogs, said others. Few were surprised or saddened when the National Football League suspended Chaney without pay for an undisclosed term. 6 coal miners in Utah were trapped 1,500 feet underground when the support beams collapsed. Digging was immediately started in an effort to rescue the 6. 5 volunteer miners risked their lives to descend down to the location of the cave-in. A day later, another cave-in occurred, killing 3 of the 5 would-be rescuers. All 5 were pulled out of the mine. The government banned any further attempts at rescue by men. Instead, machines would be used to burrow into the ground. Listening devices would be able to detect any human activity, and probes would be able to detect the amount of oxygen present. Even though most people figured that the original 6 had died almost immediately, 5 more holes were dug during the next 2 weeks in an effort to find and deliver food and water to survivors. This effort was made more difficult because searchers did not know the exact location of the original cave-in. After the 4th, 5th, and 6th digs had produced no positive results, the owner of the mine said that was it. Enough was enough. He had done all he could do, and after 2 weeks of no food and water, it was impossible that anyone could still be alive. The families of the 6 miners were outraged, telling the media that the owner had given only lip service to rescue attempts. They planned to sue. She was a big, homely, overweight young woman, in her late 20s maybe. No ring on her finger, so she was probably single. In fact, judging from her unfriendly demeanor, she probably had no boyfriend, and unless she started dieting and exercising regularly, she would probably remain unattached. Vivian asked her to make sure to remove the plastic tag from each article of clothing that Vivian was buying at Marshall's. The woman looked at Vivian but said nothing. Not, "Yes, ma'am," not, "Of course," not, "No problem." She yanked each shirt off its hanger, removed each tag, and folded each shirt quickly but carelessly. Even though the building was air-conditioned, her forehead had beads of sweat. Occasionally she wiped the sweat off with the back of her hand. When she finished removing all the plastic tags and folding shirts into 3 piles, she rang up the total, $530.78. Vivian presented her Visa card. The clerk completed the transaction and gave Vivian the receipt to sign. Then she started to put all 19 shirts into one big bag. Vivian said, "No, please put them into 3 bags because that would be easier to carry back out to the car." The young woman made a sour face, as if she had been asked to lick the floor clean. She almost threw each pile of shirts into 3 separate plastic bags. Vivian said thank you and picked up the bags. The young woman said nothing. Wordlessly, she wiped the sweat off her forehead, pulled a shirt off the hanger for the next customer, and folded it. Every 2 years, DMV sent Corey a notice to get a pollution check to make sure his Cadillac wasn't fouling the California sky. Corey thought that DMV was fighting a losing battle, considering that there were 30 million cars and 10 million cows in California, not to mention the air pollution drifting into California from across the Pacific. After driving on the 210 freeway for 20 minutes to warm the engine up, Corey drove to the test-only center on Colorado Boulevard. Sam, the owner, offered Corey a bottle of purified water. Sam pulled the car up to the test machine and stuck the machine's sensor up the car's tailpipe. This isn't good, Corey thought. Sam showed Corey the printout. "Your vehicle is a gross polluter." "What does that mean?" Corey asked. It meant that Corey had to take his car to a mechanic to find out why the car was running so rich. It was using gasoline inefficiently. Maybe that's why I'm getting only 8 miles per gallon, Corey thought. Sam said that once the problem was fixed, bring the car back for a second test, which would be free. Corey took his car to Mo, his regular mechanic. Mo said he couldn't help Corey, but his friend Ramsey specialized in emission problems. He gave Corey Ramsey's business card. "Tell him that I recommended you," Mo said. Ramsey said to bring the car by 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. First come, first served. Corey got there at 7:40 a.m. Monday. There were 3 cars already parked there, but Corey was relieved to discover that they were the mechanic's cars. He was the first customer. Ramsey introduced himself, saying, "Coffee will be ready in a few minutes. I'll show you the waiting room." He was a friendly, courteous man. Corey felt comfortable. Mo had sent him to a good place. Nicholas was sitting in the waiting room Monday morning. He had brought 4 magazines with him in case the mechanics had to spend all day fixing his car. His portable Sony radio was on, and one earbud was stuck in his right ear. A customer came into the waiting room. Nicholas overheard the customer talking to Harold, the service representative. The customer was from Milford, the same little town that Nicholas was from. After the customer and Harold had finished talking, Harold went back outside. Nicholas thought he would introduce himself. He said, "I heard that you are from Milford." The young man nodded. "Are you going to the parade on Wednesday?" Nicholas asked. "What parade?" the man asked. Wednesday was the 4th of July. Nicholas wondered if he was talking to someone who just happened to be visiting Earth on his way to Pluto. "Didn't you say you live in Milford?" Nicholas asked. The man nodded. "How long have you lived there?" Nicholas asked. 5 years, the man replied. And you've never been to the 4th of July parade? Nicholas asked. The man shook his head. He seemed totally uninterested in continuing the conversation, although all he was doing was watching cars drive by on the nearby street. Oh well, I tried to be neighborly, Nicholas thought, as he put the earbud back in his ear and opened one of his magazines. Martin and Jane were shopping. They were in Ross Dress for Less. They had just bought shirts, pants, skirts, and tops that filled up 4 plastic bags. Martin picked up all 4 bags. Jane said there was no need to do that. Why not? He asked her. We can just put everything into a Ross cart and roll it out to the car, she suggested. We can't do that, he replied. These carts are for in-store use only. You can't walk all over the mall with their carts. Let's just carry these bags out to the car, put them into the trunk, and then we can continue to shop. They no sooner walked out the door of Ross than they saw about 50 rental shopping carts locked to a rail. See? Martin pointed out to Jane. If you want to use the cart, you can just rent one for the whole day from the rack. The mall was huge, and it was air-conditioned. Both of them were chilly. When we get back to the car, let's grab our jackets, Jane suggested. As soon as they walked outside, the blast of summer heat hit them. Once at the car, they put the bags into the trunk. Then they plopped down into the front seats. They were both tired from all the walking they had just done. When they felt more refreshed, they locked the car and walked back to the mall entrance. Wait a minute, Jane said. They stopped. Jane told Martin about the 2 suspicious characters sitting outside the entrance. They were watching us as we carried the bags out to the car, she said. You have very sharp eyes, Martin said. They went back to their car. Martin drove around to the other side of the mall, and they parked in the area marked 6. Happy birthday, this is your dad calling, Dad said. Dad always identified himself, as if, after 60 years, Joel didn't recognize his own dad's voice. Well, you're getting pretty old, aren't you? Dad asked. I sure am, Joel said. In fact, I'm the same age you were 20 years ago. Yes, who'd ever think that they wished they were 60 again, said his dad. This aging process is certainly no fun. You can say that again, Joel said. But as they say, it's a lot better than the alternative, as long as you're reasonably healthy in mind and body. They both agreed. His dad and mom were still quite active. They lived together in their house. They both drove. They both played golf regularly and were active volunteers in the community. But such independence would not last forever. Both of them would eventually need part-time or full-time nursing assistants at home, or maybe even have to be moved into a nursing home. What a quiet end that will be, Joel thought, to such fun, productive, and eventful lives. Lying in a bed in a nursing home, waiting for relatives and friends to come visit. Waiting for the nurse's aide to bring medication, dinner, or an extra blanket. Waiting for help to use the bathroom. Much of that time spent waiting would also be spent in thought. What do people think about when they know their time is almost up? Joel wondered. A 58-year-old woman, mother of 3, grandmother of 8, was shot twice in the head Friday night. She was driving to the Walmart east of Pasadena. Only a block from her home, she saw 2 kids spray painting graffiti on a new building. She honked at the kids. They continued to tag the building. She honked again. Then she got out of her car and started yelling at them to stop it. They turned around and shouted obscenities at her. She got back into her car, telling the boys that she was calling the police.